Good evening and namaskar. Welcome to the India podcast on Bharatvarsha and its stories. Chapter 2: The Residue of Islamism. The most malevolent of these residues is Islamism. The residue of Muslim invasion of India spreads over several centuries. Its basic tenets are ultimately derived from the teachings of Islam, which has so far succeeded in sealing itself from every shade of empiricism. Rationalism, universalism, humanism, and liberalism, the hallmarks of Hindu as well as modern Western culture. But in the context of India, where Islam failed in its mission of lasting conquest and total conversion, these tenets have acquired a singularly sinister and subversive character. Let it be clear that the reference here is not at all to our Muslim brethren who are our own flesh and blood, except for the microscopic minority that takes pride in the purity of its Arab, Persian and Turkish descent. Instead of being proponents of Islamism, the Muslims of India are its victim, whom it is trying to use as a vehicle of poisonous virulence. The vast majority of Indian Muslims were converted to Islam by force or allurement. But the conversion did not help them socially or culturally, as their status today in India's Muslim society would amply prove. The Muslims of India, therefore, have to be freed from rather than accused of Islamicism. What we mean by Islamicism is a self-righteous psychology and a closed cultural attitude which makes it impossible for its converts to coexist peacefully and in dignity with other people. There are many Hindus who share several tenets of Islamicism. On the other hand, there are many Muslims who are frightened by Islamicism and would love to join the mainstream Indian nationalism if they are freed from the whip hand which a minority of theologians, politicians and hooligans had come to wield in their community. Those who want to know Islamicism firsthand and in full measure are referred to Sheikh Sir Muhammad Iqbal's two long poems which he wrote quite early in his career and which earned for him the title of Allama among the adherents of his cult. These are the Shikwa and Jawab-e-Shikwa which Mr. Kushwant Singh has recently published in an English translation. The Shikwa ends by summing up that Nagma-e-Hind hai to kya, le to hizari hui meri. That is, no matter if my idiom is Indian, my spirit is that of Hijaz. Hijaz is that part of Arabia in which Mecca and Medina are situated. The Jawab-e-Shikwa ends on a still more stringent note. Allah announces to Allama his supreme message for mankind in the following words. Ki wafa tune Muhammad se to hum tere hain. That is, if you are faithful to Muhammad, I shall be faithful to you. Now, there are many Muslims in India who have never heard of the name of Iqbal or listened to his muse. And there are many Hindus who have great admiration for the muse of Iqbal, and it lies immeasurable. No, Islamicism does not refer to any particular section of Indian society. It refers to the intellectual or an intellectual attitude towards the award, the monopoly of truth and virtue to a particular prophet and consigns all knowledge to the pages of a particular book. Taking our cue from Allama Iqbal and his lesser cohorts like Altaf Hussain Hali, we can safely summarize the credo of Islamicism in the following 5 fundamentals. First point, that Indian society before the advent of Islam was living in utter spiritual, moral and cultural darkness, Jahiliya, as they say, like pre-Islamic Arabia. Second, that Islam brought to India the only true religion, the only authentic moral values and the only humane culture and the only progressive social order. That this living mission of Islam in India could not be completed as in many other lands of Asia and Africa due to the intervention of the wily British who cheated Islam of its empire in India mostly by means of fraud. Fourth, that while the creation of Pakistan had been a triumph and consolidation of power of Islam, west of Ravi and east of Hooghly, the conquest of India by Islam remains an unfinished task. Fifth, that Islam has a right to use all means, including force, to convert this Darul Harb of an India into a Darul Islam, so that Hukumat-e-Ilahiyya could be liquidated all traces of Jahiliya and impose the law and culture of Islam. There are many Hindus like the late Pandit Sundarlal who fully accept the first 2 fundamentals of Islam. It is a different matter that their logic fails them at this stage and they do not proceed to the next three fundamentals which will follow irrevocably. And there are many Muslims like late Rafi Ahmed Kidwai and Justice M.C. Changla who rejects their fundamental as repugnant. Having thus outlined its version of past Indian history and the apocalypse towards which future Indian history should be forced to travel, Islamicism has involved a strategy in which Muslims of India are envisaged as a base and as an arsenal. Some features of this strategy can be outlined as follow. 1. The Muslim of India, particularly the Muslim intelligentsia, should be sealed off from every shade of rationalism, universalism, humanism, and liberalism. And an army of mullah and maulvis trained in these tenets of Islam should be let loose to brainwash and keep them along the right track. 2. Every Muslim who does not accept Islamicism or dares criticize it or stands for the mainstream of Indian nationalism away from other above religious differences should be denounced as a renegade and a legitimate victim of murderous Muslim mobs. Third, the Muslim should be encouraged to air as many grievances as can be invented and try to pass off as many downtrodden minority, oppressed, exploited and treated as second-class citizens by the brute Hindu majority. Fourth, these contrived grievances of Muslims should be used to convert the Muslim community into a compact vote bank which can be function as a balancing factor in many electoral constituencies as possible and which can blackmail all non-Islamist Muslim parties or political parties to accommodate Muslim candidates or include the maximum measure of concession to Muslim community in their election manifestos. Fifth, the Muslims should be made to agitate for India's support to all international Islamic causes, right or wrong, legitimate or illegitimate, so that their attention is kept constantly diverted from demands of their own economic, social and cultural conditions. The Muslims should progressively persuaded and prepared to stage street riots on the slightest pretext to be it a stray pig or a music or before a mosque or Urdu or minority character of Aligarh Muslim University or a purely personal fracas between Taufs belonging to two communities or a bombing of Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem by an Australian adventurer or the hanging of Zulfikar Ali Bhutto by President Zia of Pakistan or the capture of Kaaba by some disgruntled faction of Saudi Arabian politics or some other similar events in the Islamic world at large. 7. The frequent riots should be used to frighten the Muslim, who should then be coaxed to create, consolidate and extend exclusive Muslim enclaves which can be stocked with arms and ammunitions, imported or otherwise. The sevenfold strategy is aimed at the Muslims in India who are to be brainwashed, blackmailed, frightened and forced into the fold of Islamicism. Another side of the same strategy has been worked out to neutralize and paralyze and blacken or pamper different sections of Hindu society so that the road is clear for the forward march of Islamism. Some of the salient features of this secondary strategy can be outlined as follows. The concept of secularism, which is enshrined in the Constitution of India and which has become most sacred slogan for all political parties, should be distorted, misinterpreted and misused to the maximum to block out the least little expression of Hindu culture in the state apparatus and public life of India. Second, the term communal and communalism, which have become terms of abuse in Indian political parlance, should be carefully cultivated and more mystified to malign all those organizations, institutions and parties which do not serve Islamicism directly and or indirectly. The accusations of being fascist and anti-secularist should be hurled at all those individuals and organizations who question the exclusive claims of Islam and its culture, who know and tell truth about Islamic scriptures and history, and who see through the Muslim game of grievance. Fourth, all praise and support should be extended to those Hindus who go out of their way to champion Islamic causes, national and international, and who see in Islam and its culture those higher values which Islam claims for them. Fifth, all available platforms should be used to defeat and frustrate the emergence of a genuine and positive Indian nationalism by always harping and India's multiracial, multi-religious, multi-language, multi-national and multicultural character. Islamicism did make some headway amongst the Muslim in independent India, mostly because of the dominant section of Hindu intelligentsia that patronized it for various reasons. The Congress politicians patronized it because they found out very soon that they were in a minority amongst Hindus, and they could survive in power only by combining a solid Muslim vote with whatever Hindu vote they could get. The socialists went out of their way to patronize it partly because they harbor an anti-Hindu animus and partly in a hope of securing Muslim vote, a hope which has not yet come anywhere near fulfillment. The Gandhian patronized it because they no more remembered that the great master Mahatma Gandhi was a Hindu with a profound faith in Sanatan Dharma, and because they misunderstood his doctrine of non-violence towards all people, including the Muslims of India, as an endorsement of Islam. The communists patronized it because they saw it as a powerful ally in their campaign against Hindu society, and they viewed as many as their main enemy. The self-alienated Hindu intellectual patronized it out of sheer animus towards Hindu society and culture, which they were out of damn on any pretext. Extending patronage to Islam thus became a pastime for those who wanted to pass off as large-hearted liberals and progressives and secularists. But in the absence of the local resources and international patronage, the progress of Islam in India was rather slow. Pakistan, which was in its only patron abroad, could not provide much help beyond some hysteria in the mass media and propaganda in international political forum. The several wars which India was forced to fight with Pakistan to disadvantage of the latter also inhibited Islam in India from acquiring the requisite degree of self-confidence. The use of oil as a political weapon by Islamic countries and the influx of petrodollars is plenty from several Arab countries, particularly Libya and Saudi Arabia, since the early 70s have given Islamicism in India a new blow of self-confidence in some sudden sweep. This influx of Arab money is a natural and inevitable phenomena because in the last analysis, Islamism is only another name of Arab imperialism, which had at one stage of its history pillaged and populated with its own progeny many foreign lands, and which even today keeps many non-Arab nations spiritually enslaved. Islamicism in India is now busy employing to the maximum advantage of Arab money, and which is pouring in through many channels and is increasing quantities. Some of these uses are very obvious to the eye. The few salient features of the new scenario can be listed as follows. The rapid rise of power press, mostly in Indian languages, and many publishing houses to propagate Islamism. The generous funding of old and founding many new maktabs, madrasas and institutes for teaching Islam and training missionaries who are then employed at high salaries for purifying the faith of Muslim flock and seeking new pastures to convert to Islam. Buying of land and real estate all around the urban and rural areas of individual Muslim and Islamic institutions and organizations at whatever price is available. Manufacturing and storing of arms in mosques, Muslim homes and localities, and training of Muslim staff. Holding of frequent conferences, national and international, and taking out demonstrations in support of every Islamic cause. Financing Muslim politics and inducing Muslim politicians to infiltrate and ingratiate themselves in every political party and functions from every public platform. Bribing secularist Hindu intellectuals, scribes, public workers and politicians and buying them up for supporting Islamism, denigrating Hindu culture and character, assassinating those who oppose Islam. Using the lure of money for winning converts to Islam from the weaker sections of Hindu society, particularly Harijans. The strategy is nothing new. The self-same strategy had been used by Muslim League for carving out Pakistan. Only the aid and abetment which the British provided at one time had been replaced by aid and abetment from Arab countries. And in the matter of mere decade, Islamicism in India has assumed the same menacing proportions as it had on the eve of partition. The parallel should make us pause. End of second chapter. Please stay tuned.